Here to introduce Joe Gebbia is Hall of Fame legend Daniel Lubetzky.
What an incredible video and an inspiration. And yet I'm tremendously worried for our team because I'm thinking that last year introducing me was Kendra Scott. Have you seen Kendra Scott? I mean, she is so smart, so stylish, so beautiful, so elegant, so eloquent. And now poor Joe has this confused Mexican Jew with this weird accent. You can maybe barely make out what I'm saying already, and $18 haircut, 20-year-old talks. I'm really worried for our team, but by the way, did you listen to Trevor Reese-Jones' accent? Like that sexy Texas baritone? I got no chance. But I think our team will do fine because of Joe's superpower, which is his extraordinary creativity. In every entrepreneur, there is a piece of creativity. And Joe brings the A game with his design thinking. When you want to create something, you need to first understand what is the problem, what's missing in society, and then challenge conventional wisdom and try to see how can I challenge false assumptions and think outside the box. And that's what Joe has proven already at least twice that he can do in extraordinary ways to transform entire industries. It's really, really important in our society today because we're living in a world where we're asked not to engage in debate, where we're afraid to ask questions. And Joe, at a very, very important time, is showing us how to transform entire industries, such as what he did with Airbnb with his partners. I mean, think about what they did. They pioneered an entire new, I told you my accent was going to really bad, entire new industry. I mean, the way we travel now, the way we experience humanity and connect with people that are our hosts, the way we create new income streams for so many people, for millions of people at a time, the way Joe and his team are revitalizing entire economies. It's just an extraordinary feat. And now he's promising to do the same thing with Samara. But there's something that I even love more about Joe than his extraordinary brain and creativity. And it's the way he treats others. It's the way he treats his parents. I got to observe this over the last several years. I think top 1 percentile in how he treats human beings, how he is a great brother, a great husband to Isabel, how they're great parents. And every day that I've been with Joe, I see how he treats everybody with dignity. And what I love the most about this community is not just what we're doing, but how we're doing it, how we're transforming the world, not just by providing jobs and opportunities for everybody, but how we're doing it in how we handle relationships with one another. And I don't think we could be any luckier than to have Joe Gebbia as an inductee, as a member of this community who's going to bring so much good to Texas, so much good to the world, and I can't wait to see all the great things that he's going to continue bringing to us. He's like a young and extraordinarily impressive awardee. Thank you, Joe. Thank you for being so incredible. By the way, I had an amazing joke, and Meredith told me to keep it quiet, so I'll tell it to you next year.
Well, thank you, Daniel. What a gracious introduction from a true maven. You know, I initially met Daniel at the very first dinner party I attended after moving to Texas. At a long table full of business leaders, a charismatic, dark-haired, articulate gentleman with infectious energy captivated the room with his charisma. Who was this mystery man? Well, it turns out he was also an entrepreneur. Not on the internet, but with something much more formidable, granola. He was the first natural foods entrepreneur I've ever met. At least the first successful one. I never met the Quaker Oats guy. In my mind, the owner of Kind Bar was a long-haired hippie who lived in the jungle, but this guy, where were the dreadlocks? He wasn't wearing Birkenstocks, no hemp t-shirt. He looked like a suaver, better-looking James Bond with a cool accent. So it's no surprise he's also here this evening. That same magnanimous gentleman from the dinner table 4 years ago, showing up to celebrate other success, once again welcoming me and now all of us here tonight. Also around the time I met Daniel, I encountered the saying, "You don't move into Texas, Texas moves into you." It didn't take long for me. Okay, great. It didn't take long for me to grasp that meaning as well. The spirit of Texas, it's more than geography. As represented by this room, you personify the unique blend of daring and generosity, integrity and ambition, independence and collaboration, embracing challenges with a healthy dose of swagger while extending a helping hand to lift others up along the way. To that extent, I consider myself not just a resident, but a citizen of Texas. And as I continue to plant my roots through my work on the Tesla board, my involvement with the Spurs, via gifts to homeless shelters in Austin, and a soon-to-be-announced new establishment downtown, I couldn't be more thrilled to continue calling the Lone Star State by another name, home. Thank you. In that spirit, I'd like to say a special thank you to the Texas Business Hall of Fame for the honor this evening. And because no one does it alone, I'd also like to thank my family and my friends for being with me here tonight. So while many of you may be familiar with the founding of Airbnb, I'd like to share a lesser-known story from a bygone time when we all think we're much smarter than we actually are, college. In my case, that was the Rhode Island School of Design. During freshman orientation, I was sharing my schedule with an upperclassman. All was going well until I got to the name of my 3D design professor, Gareth Jones. I saw a look of bewildered terror in the upperclassman's eyes. "You've got Gareth Jones? Oh, man." I raised an eyebrow. "Yeah, so who's he?" He leans in, voice dropping to a whisper like he's about to reveal a dark secret. "Just wait for the chess set project." I squint, my heart is racing. The what? He leans back all dramatic like he's just foretold the exact day of my demise. You'll see. The next morning, I arrive at the class of this notorious professor. My classmates also look terrified by whatever they heard about him. So I'm sitting there trying to act calm, and suddenly the door swings open, and in walks this imperious-looking man, dressed in all black, his dark hair a wild, fluffy poof of chaos. He opens his mouth in a thick Welsh accent, proclaims, "I just want you all to know that half of you are going to fail my course because you won't finish the chess set project." My first thought, what the hell have I gotten myself into? Everyone looks around, is he serious? But Gareth continues talking before our panic can fully sink in. He explains that on top of our weekly assignments, we'll be working on a semester-long project outside of class. We'll choose a 3D artist like a sculptor, a furniture designer, or even a fashion designer, and reproduce their creations at a 12-inch scale using the format of a chess set. Meaning you take one piece and you make it 8 times for your pawn, take another piece made twice for the rook, and so on. It doesn't have to look like chess pieces, it just follows the format. So at this point, there's a collective gasp from the class. 16 total pieces, each a foot tall, and we have to cover our own material costs? I look around, everyone is sweating bullets. Gareth just grins at our collective crisis. In that moment, I made a decision. There is no way I'm failing this class. I'd recently become interested in furniture design, and I came across a Dutch legend named Gerrit Rietveld. His chairs are in the Museum of Modern Art, Total Classics. As I imagined the sheer effort that it was going to take, I didn't really want the output to be these tiny 12-inch chairs. I thought, I'll make full-scale chairs that I could actually use. So the next class, I called Gareth over and I'm like, I have a brilliant idea. I'm gonna make full-size functional chairs. Now my expectation was he's gonna give me a high five and say things like, Joe, you can do this, you got this, I believe in you. Instead, he lets out a heavy sigh and he goes, Joe, I really don't think you can do it. Focus on the smallest scale. And he walks off. And I'm like, whoa, no effing way. All right, buddy. You just lit every fire that you needed to light to get me to figure out how to do this. The problem was, I had no idea how to make a chair. I'd never worked with wood. I never used power tools. And the only carpenter I knew about until that point was Jesus. I don't even know if he made chairs. I had every excuse not to do this, but rather than letting myself get overwhelmed and do nothing, I figured out the smallest next step I could take. And then I took it. So while my friends were out on Saturday night partying like normal freshmen do, I was having my own little party, accidentally getting high on wood glue as I struggled to figure out how not to fail this class. So over the following weeks, chairs started coming together. I purposely never told Gareth where I was in the process. Each class he'd ask, how's it coming? I'd say, yeah, it's fine. Meanwhile, back in my dorm room, it was turning into a poor man's IKEA, and my roommate was seriously considering filing an injunction. So Rietveld also designed this bench, which I decided to use for my pawns, which means I had to make 8 of these things. For some reason, I didn't anticipate just how much plywood that would actually take. It was astronomically more than I had in my checking account. So I was racking my brain trying to figure out how to overcome this latest obstacle. I was walking through the freshman quad, and it hit me. There's all these people standing around, but there's nowhere to sit. I thought, what if I convinced the school to pay for the wood, I use the benches for my project, and then the school can use them in the quad afterwards? So I take another next step, and I schedule a meeting with the head of residence life. I'm there in his office, wearing my best shirt. I pitch him the idea, and he loves it. Suddenly, I've got a few $1,000s for plywood, access to the school's wood shops, and the school's carpenters who are now working for me. By the end of the semester, I had 16 full-size functional chairs, none of which Gareth had seen yet. I finished the last one at 2 a.m. the night before the final critique. A critique is where you present your work to your professor, and they essentially rip it apart. Here are some real-life examples of critiques Gareth gave other students over the years. With work like that, you should be in the witness protection program. If you were in a race with 2 other students, you would come in 4th. You've heard the phrase, less is more. In your case, none is best. So, still a little uncertain, I strategically picked the slot right after lunch. So while everyone was out eating, I could get a few buddies to help me carry a swarm of chairs through the snow from my dorm room across campus to the studio and arrange them for the big reveal moment. My only regret from this project is that I did not have a camera to capture Gareth's face when he walked in the room. He strides into the studio, he looks up, stops dead in his tracks, gaping at the sea of chairs in front of him. You can almost hear him counting in his head, 15, 16. He turns and looks at me and he says, Joe, you've done it. You've proven me wrong. I wanted to scream, yes, mother, but I kept it cool. For the rest of the critique, we all sat in my chairs and discussed the project. I aced it. Gareth would go on to tell the story in every class after that, probably with just a hint of begrudging admiration. Last year, the man who introduced me tonight, Daniel Lubetzky, received this honor. During his speech, he challenged everyone in the audience to acknowledge a teacher who helped shape their path. I decided to answer his call, which is why I'm recognizing one teacher who helped me, Gareth Jones. So wherever you are in the world tonight, Gareth, I hope you are continuing to torture your students, thereby bringing out the best in them. There's many lessons I learned from the Chess Set project. If you truly believe in something, Don't take no for an answer. The deepest source of motivation comes from solving your own problem. Let constraints ignite creativity. And perhaps the most simple lesson of all, take the next step. Whatever your idea is, the thing that keeps you up in the middle of the night, the concept that follows you into the shower, the thought that won't leave you alone. Take the next step on it. Doesn't have to be big, just has to be one step, a tiny, almost imperceptible action that moves you forward. Whether it's doing research, sending an email, making a phone call, learning a new skill, or just sitting down to write it out. I took small steps over the course of a semester, resulting in what seemed impossible, 16 full-size chairs. Airbnb is a result of hundreds of thousands of tiny, sometimes awkward and uncomfortable steps. What matters is that we took them. So think about the chess set project in your own life. Whatever it is, what can you do right now? What is your next step? Now go take it. And maybe prove someone wrong while you're at it. Thank you.